Look who just became a national security enigma. You, yes you, sitting there thinking you're just another face in the crowd, just another name in the database, just another file gathering digital dust. Wrong, dead wrong. Because somewhere in a temperature-controlled facility, there's an analyst staring at 17 monitors, and every single one of them is showing your profile. And every single one of them is screaming the same thing. Error. Does not compute. Cannot categorize. And that analyst, they've got a migraine that won't quit, a coffee addiction that's turning lethal, and a supervisor breathing down their neck, asking one simple question they can't answer. What the hell are we looking at here? You see, they've been watching. Not for days, not for weeks, years, plural. Multiple fiscal budgets have been allocated to studying you. Entire shifts have been assigned to your case. Algorithms, specifically designed to predict human behavior, have crashed trying to process your patterns. They've got your digital footprint mapped, your location history tracked, your transaction records analyzed, your social connections graphed, your communication patterns decoded. They know what you eat for breakfast, what time you sleep, which route you take to work, how long you spend in the bathroom, what makes you laugh at 2 a.m. They know things about you that you've forgotten about yourself. But here's the beautiful, chaotic, absolutely maddening truth. They don't know you, not even close, not even a little bit. Because every time they think they've got you figured out, every time they draft their profile, every time they assign you a category, a classification, a threat level, a predictability score, you do something that shatters their entire framework. You're the anomaly that keeps multiplying. The outlier that refuses to regress to any mean. The data set that makes their machine learning models throw exceptions. And it's driving them absolutely insane because their entire existence depends on one fundamental principle. Everything can be classified. Everyone fits somewhere. But you stubborn, brilliant, categorically impossible human, you don't fit anywhere, and you won't stay still long enough for them to force you into a box. Let me paint you the picture. Right now, there's a file, your file. It's not slim, it's not neat. It's 347 pages of contradictions, paradoxes, and behavioral patterns that cancel each other out. Page 1 says you're risk-averse. Page 43 says you're a thrill seeker. Page 92 says you're socially anxious. Page 160 says you're a natural leader. Page 211 says you're predictable. Page 212 says you're chaos incarnate. And the analyst reading this, they're not nodding along. They're not taking notes. They're staring at their screen like it just insulted their mother. Because nothing, absolutely nothing about you makes sense in their world. They've watched you stay silent for months and labeled you passive, then watched you speak up once and shift an entire room's energy and had to delete everything they wrote. They've watched you tolerate disrespect with a smile, categorized you as a pushover, then watched you cut someone off permanently, without warning, without drama, without explanation, and had to rewrite your entire psychological profile. They've watched you live modestly, filed you under low ambition, then watched you execute a plan so precise, so calculated, so devastatingly effective that they had to add 17 new data points to your classification system. You're not behaving like the algorithms said you would. You're not following the patterns your demographics suggest. You're not conforming to the predictions your history implies. Every model they build around you crumbles. Every prediction they make about you fails. Every time they think they understand your motivations, you do something that reveals 7 more layers they didn't even know existed. They thought you were reactive, but you've been strategic this whole time. They thought you were emotional, but you've been calculating behind that mask. They thought you were broken, but you were just reorganizing your entire operational structure in silence. And now they're sitting there with charts that don't chart, graphs that don't graph, and reports that read like fiction because the truth, the actual documented truth about you, Sounds too impossible to be real. Here's what they know for certain. You're not a threat, but you're not harmless. You're not a follower, but you're not leading anyone. You're not ambitious, but you're achieving things that require massive ambition. You're not connected, but your influence spreads like a virus through networks you're not even part of. You're not wealthy, but you operate with the confidence of someone who's never worried about money. You're not educated in traditional ways, but you speak with an authority that makes experts second-guess themselves. You're not loud, but when you talk, rooms go quiet. You're not seeking attention, but you command it without trying. See the problem? Every single statement about you needs a but. The junior analysts, the fresh ones, they keep suggesting simple explanations. Maybe they're just inconsistent. And the senior analyst, the one who's been watching you for 3 years, the one whose marriage fell apart because they couldn't stop thinking about your case, they just laugh. A tired, broken laugh. Because inconsistent people are predictable in their inconsistency. You're not inconsistent. You're selectively consistent. You're strategically unpredictable. You're chaos that occasionally cosplays as order, or maybe you're order that occasionally cosplays as chaos, and they can't tell which, because both are equally convincing. You're a performance art piece that no one can tell is performance, or just art, or neither, or both. They've tried everything: behavioral analysis, psychological profiling, pattern recognition software, predictive modeling. They've compared you to 12,000 other profiles. They've run your data through systems designed to catch terrorists, detect fraud, predict mass movements. Nothing sticks. Nothing holds. You're slipping through every net they cast. They thought maybe you were trained, maybe intelligence, maybe corporate espionage, maybe foreign operative. They investigated, found nothing, because you're not trained. You're just you. And that's somehow more terrifying to them than any training could ever be. Because training they understand, training they can decode. But natural, organic, unstructured unpredictability, that's the stuff that breaks their systems. Let me tell you what happened last Thursday. Thursday, 3:47 p.m. You did something. Something small. Something that to you was probably meaningless, forgettable, just another moment in your day. But to them, to the analyst watching, it was the data point that made them stand up from their desk, walk to their supervisor's office, and say, "We need to reclassify this entire case." Want to know what you did? You chose something that, according to 17 years of behavioral research, given your profile, your history, your patterns, you had a 2.3% chance of choosing. And you didn't choose it randomly. You chose it deliberately, with purpose, with intention. And they have no idea why, no framework to understand it, no model to predict it. You just did it. And it worked. And now they're rewriting algorithms. But here's the beautiful part. The part that's keeping them up at night. The part that's turning your file from a curiosity into a legend. You're not trying to confuse them. You're not intentionally being unpredictable. You're not playing games with surveillance systems. You're just living. You're just being yourself. You're just making choices that make sense to you, in your world, with your logic, following your internal compass that apparently operates on principles that modern behavioral science hasn't discovered yet. You're not the rebel. You're not the anarchist. You're not the revolutionary. You're just someone who refuses to be simple, refuses to be easily understood, refuses to collapse into a single narrative. They wanted you to be one thing, you're 17 things. They wanted you to stay in one lane. You're driving on roads they didn't know existed. They wanted you to follow patterns. You create new ones daily. They wanted you to be predictable. You're a randomness generator wrapped in human skin. They wanted you to make sense. You're a beautiful, perfect, absolute disaster of contradictions that somehow impossibly work together. And the craziest part, you don't even know you're doing this. You're not conscious of being an anomaly. You're just making breakfast, going to work, having conversations, making choices, living life. Meanwhile, Somewhere in a government facility, an entire department is having an existential crisis because of you. Your social patterns alone have spawned 3 different theories. Theory 1. You're extremely introverted with occasional extroverted outbursts. Theory 2. You're extremely extroverted, hiding behind introversion as a defense mechanism. Theory 3. You've transcended the entire introvert-extrovert spectrum and operate on a completely different axis that psychology hasn't named yet. All 3 theories have evidence. All 3 theories have been disproven. All 3 theories are simultaneously correct and incorrect. You're a walking, talking refutation of personality typing. Myers-Briggs looks at you and has a seizure. Enneagram sees you and requests a system update. The Big Five watches you and adds a 6th dimension just for you. Your financial behavior is another masterpiece of confusion. You're frugal, except when you're not. You save aggressively, except when you spend like money's evaporating tomorrow. You budget meticulously, except your budget has line items that make no logical sense. You're financially conservative, except you take risks that would make venture capitalists sweat. You live below your means, except you invest in things that people twice your income level consider luxury. You're risk-averse with money, except you bet on yourself in ways that look insane on paper but somehow always work out. They've tried to model your financial decision-making. The model returned an error message that just said, "Good luck with that." Your relationship patterns, they've given up on those entirely. You're loyal to a fault, except you'll ghost someone without warning. You're trusting, except your walls are reinforced concrete. You're open, except there are parts of you no one's ever seen. You invest deeply in people, except you can detach completely when needed. You forgive easily, except certain lines, once crossed, result in permanent exile. You're a people person, except you disappear for weeks and don't miss anyone. You need connection, except you thrive in isolation. You're emotionally available, except when you're not, and no one can tell the difference. Your relationships don't follow attachment theory. They follow some kind of custom-built framework that you invented without realizing it. And your ambitions, your goals, your life direction, that's where it gets truly beautiful. They can't figure out what you want, because you want everything and nothing. You're driven, except you're content. You're hungry, except you're satisfied. You're climbing, except you're already at the top of your own mountain. You want success, except you've redefined success in ways that don't register on traditional metrics. You're competitive, except you're only competing with yourself. You want recognition, except you actively avoid the spotlight. You want to change the world, except you're fine if no one ever knows you did it. You're ambitious, except ambition implies wanting something you don't have, and you seem to have everything you need without having anything they expect you to need. Here's what really breaks their brains, though. You're happy. Not fake happy, not performing happy, actually genuinely happy, or content, or at peace, or whatever you want to call that state, where someone isn't constantly chasing, seeking, needing, wanting more. And according to everything they know about human behavior, about motivation, about drive, about the hedonic treadmill, about social comparison, about status anxiety, you shouldn't be. Not with your circumstances, not with your challenges, not with your history, not with what you've been through. You should be restless. You should be dissatisfied. You should be trying to fill some void, but you're not. You're just existing in this state of okayness that their models say is impossible given your variables. They've documented 17 separate occasions where you should have broken, where the pressure was too much, where the odds were too bad, where any reasonable person would have quit, given up, walked away, collapsed. 17 times where their predictions said, system failure imminent, and 17 times where you just kept going, not dramatically, not heroically, just kept going, like it wasn't even hard. like you didn't even notice the mountain you were climbing. And each time, they had to add another footnote to your file. Subject continues to defy stress response predictions, which is their professional way of saying, we have no idea how this person is still functioning. Your communication style is another unsolved mystery. You're direct, except when you're cryptic. You say exactly what you mean, except your words have 7 layers of meaning. You're an open book, except no one can read the language it's written in. You overshare, except you've never revealed the important things. You're articulate, except sometimes you communicate more through silence than words. You're engaging in conversation, except half the time people leave conversations with you not sure what you actually said. You're honest, except your honesty is wrapped in metaphors that mean different things to different people. You're clear, except your clarity reveals how much depth was hiding under simple statements. And your decision-making process, the thing they watch most carefully because decisions reveal values, motivations, patterns. Your decisions are pure chaos dressed as logic. You use reason, except your reasoning includes variables they can't measure. You're analytical, except you factor in intuition like it's hard data. You weigh options carefully, except sometimes you just know and you move and it works. You're strategic, except your strategy includes elements of chance that somehow aren't chance. You plan ahead, except you're comfortable pivoting completely based on a feeling. You're systematic, except your system includes throwing out the system when it stops serving you. You follow a process, except the process is invisible to everyone but you. Let's talk about your resilience, because this is where they really lose their minds. Resilience they understand. Resilience has markers, coping mechanisms, support systems, recovery patterns. But you don't bounce back. You don't recover. You don't cope in recognizable ways. You just absorb impact and keep moving. Like you're made of some material that doesn't register damage the way it's supposed to. They've watched you experience loss, betrayal, failure, rejection, pain. All the things that should leave psychological markers, behavioral changes, defensive adaptations. And you came out of each experience different, yes, but not damaged, not hardened, not bitter, not defensive, just different. Like you metabolized the experience and integrated it without letting it define you. They're starting to suspect you're not playing the same game everyone else is playing, that you're operating from a completely different rule book, or no rule book, that you've somehow opted out of the systems that govern most human behavior without opting out of society itself. You're in the world, but not of it. You're participating, but not competing. You're connected, but not dependent. You're engaged, but not attached. You're present, but not imprisoned by the present. You're ambitious, but not desperate. You're successful, but not status-seeking. You're confident, but not arrogant. You're humble, but not self-deprecating. You're all these contradictions existing simultaneously without contradiction. The newest analyst on your case, fresh out of training, full of confidence and theoretical knowledge, they spent their first week reviewing your file. At the end of week 1, they submitted a preliminary report. 3 pages, clean classifications, clear predictions, confident assessments. The senior analyst, the one who's been drowning in your file for years, they didn't even read it. Just handed it back and said, revise this in 6 months, after you've watched them actually live. Week 12, that new analyst submitted a revised report, 27 pages. No classifications, only questions, predictions crossed out, assessments turned into hypotheses. Welcome to the club. Your file now has another confused contributor. But here's what they're really afraid of. What keeps the senior analysts awake? What turns your file from interesting to important? It's not that you're unpredictable. It's that you're unpredictable and functional. Unpredictable and successful. Unpredictable and stable. Because their entire system is built on a premise. Predictability equals stability. If we can predict you, we can manage you. If we can categorize you, we can understand the risks you pose, the value you offer, the role you'll play. But you're proving that premise wrong. You're showing that someone can be completely unclassifiable and not just survive, but thrive. And if one person can do that, maybe others can too. Maybe their entire framework is broken. You're not a glitch. You're not an error. You're evidence that the system is incomplete, that human behavior is more complex, more fluid, more beautifully chaotic than their models account for. You're the data point that doesn't fit, not because you're wrong, but because the graph is too small. And they can't just dismiss you, can't just call you an outlier and move on. Because you're not failing, you're not struggling, you're not barely making it, you're actually doing well. By most measures, you're thriving. Which means you're not the exception that proves the rule. You're the exception that questions the rule. And that's dangerous to people whose careers depend on the rule being absolute. They've started calling your file the Paradox Project, internally, not officially. Officially, it's still just your name and case number. But in the break room, in the hallway conversations, in the emails they think are private, you're the paradox, the file that makes no sense, the case that breaks the pattern, the subject that defies analysis. And there's a split happening in how they view you. Half of them are frustrated, angry even, because you're making them look incompetent, making their training seem useless, making their expertise feel hollow. They want you to fit. They need you to fit, and you won't. The other half, they're fascinated, obsessed, because you're the puzzle they've been waiting for their whole careers, the problem that actually challenges them, the mystery that might actually matter. Your file has become a teaching tool. New analysts are assigned to study you as a test. Can they find the pattern everyone else missed? Can they crack the code that stumped the veterans? So far, no one has. 93 analysts have reviewed your file. 93 different conclusions. Some contradictory, some partially overlapping, none complete, none satisfying, none predictive. Your file is where confident analysts become humble, where theoretical knowledge meets practical confusion, where the system's limitations become undeniable. You're not just a case anymore. You're a career-defining challenge. And the irony, the beautiful irony, is that you have no idea any of this is happening. You're just living your life, making your weird choices, following your strange logic, being your contradictory self. You're not trying to be difficult. You're not trying to be an enigma. You're just being authentic in a world that's designed to handle performance, not authenticity. You're just being complex in systems built for simplicity. You're just being human in frameworks designed to reduce humans to variables, and that's breaking everything. Not violently, not dramatically, just quietly, persistently, undeniably breaking everything. And you're not even watching it break. You're too busy living. Well. Look who just became the problem they can't solve, the variable they didn't account for, the name that turned a boardroom into a battlefield. Welcome back. Or should I say, welcome to the moment everything shifted. Because right now, somewhere in a room you've never seen, people you thought had you figured out just realized they don't know you at all. Someone just stood up, pushed back their chair, looked around that table with genuine fear in their eyes, and said the words that change everything. We need to rethink everything. And the silence that followed? That silence was about you. Let's paint the picture properly, shall we? There's a conference table, polished wood reflecting anxious faces. There's a projector screen with your name on it. Maybe your performance metrics, maybe your recent moves, maybe just your presence in their world. There are people who thought this meeting would be routine, a quick discussion, a simple strategy session. But then someone said something. Maybe it was your numbers, maybe it was your impact, Maybe it was the realization that every assumption they made about you was wrong, and suddenly the room temperature dropped. Suddenly, notebooks closed. Suddenly, the person who thought they had all the answers stood up and admitted they have none. We need to rethink everything. 5 words, simple words. But in that context, in that room, those 5 words were a white flag, a surrender, an admission that their entire framework for understanding you just collapsed because they built their strategies on predictions and you became unpredictable. They based their moves on patterns and you broke the pattern. They thought they had you mapped, categorized, contained, and then you did something they never saw coming. You evolved while they were busy planning. You transformed while they were still strategizing. You became the answer to a question they didn't even know they should be asking. And now? Now they're scrambling. Now the confident ones look confused. Now the decision makers look paralyzed. Now the ones who smiled at you last week are wondering if that smile is going to cost them something later. Because this meeting wasn't supposed to end like this. It was supposed to end with clarity, with direction, with everyone nodding in agreement about how to handle you. Instead, it ended with chaos. It ended with someone walking out. It ended with the realization that you are not a problem they can solve, with their usual tools, their standard procedures, their comfortable assumptions. You want to know what triggered it? It wasn't one thing. It was the accumulation. It was the way you've been moving differently, thinking differently, showing up differently. It was the results they couldn't ignore. It was the reputation that started building outside their control. It was the conversations happening about you in rooms they're not invited to. It was the sudden awareness that while they were watching you from one angle, the world was seeing you from another, and their angle was wrong. Completely, embarrassingly, devastatingly wrong. And someone in that room finally had the courage or the fear to say it out loud. Here's what you need to understand. That meeting was supposed to be about controlling you, containing you, predicting your next move so they could counter it. But midway through, the script flipped. Suddenly, it wasn't about you anymore. It was about them, about their miscalculations, about their outdated strategies, about the gap between who they thought you were and who you actually are. And that gap is massive. That gap is a canyon they just realized they can't cross. So someone stood up, because sitting in that room pretending they had answers felt more dangerous than admitting they don't. We need to rethink everything. Let that sink in. Everything. Not just their approach, not just their tactics. Everything. Their entire perception of you. Their assumptions about your limits. Their predictions about your trajectory. Their understanding of your motivations. Their belief that they could read you, manage you, outmaneuver you. All of it shattered. And the beautiful, poetic justice of this moment is that you didn't have to say a word. You didn't have to defend yourself. You didn't have to prove anything. Your actions, your results, your evolution spoke so loudly that it silenced an entire room. Think about the timeline here. Weeks ago, maybe months ago, you were the topic of casual conversation. Easy to dismiss, easy to underestimate, easy to file away under handled or not a threat, or we know exactly what they're about. They had you in a box. A neat, comfortable, predictable box. And they checked on that box occasionally, nodded in satisfaction, and moved on to other concerns. But somewhere along the line, the box started shaking, and they ignored it. Then the box started cracking, and they made excuses. Then the box exploded, and now they're standing in the debris, looking at each other, asking how this happened. You happened. That's how. You refused to stay in their narrative. You refused to play the role they assigned you. You refused to be the person their spreadsheets predicted you'd be. And every time they tried to adjust their models to account for you, you'd already moved 3 steps ahead. Every time they thought they'd figured out your pattern, you introduced a new variable. Every time they prepared a response to what they thought you'd do, you did something else entirely. And now, after all that, after all their analysis and all their planning, they're back at square one. Worse than square one, because now they know their tools don't work. The person who walked out, that person might have been the smartest one in the room, because staying in that meeting would mean continuing to pretend they have control they don't have. It would mean nodding along while everyone else builds new strategies on the same broken foundation. It would mean complicity in the delusion that they can still predict you, still manage you, still fit you into their frameworks. And some people, when they see the truth clearly enough, can't play along anymore, so they leave. They walk out, and their exit becomes the loudest statement in the room. But let's talk about the ones who stayed. The ones who are still sitting there, staring at their notes, trying to salvage something from this disaster. They're the dangerous ones now. Not because they're smart, not because they have a plan, but because they're desperate, and desperate people make reckless moves. They'll try to speed up timelines. They'll try to force reactions from you. They'll try to provoke you into revealing your strategy, because they've run out of ways to predict it. They need you to make a mistake so they can feel in control again. They need you to slip so they can say, "See, we knew it all along." Here's the truth that's keeping them up tonight. You're not making mistakes, you're making moves. Calculated, patient, strategic moves. And the difference between a mistake and a move is that a move serves your purpose, not theirs. Every time they expected you to react, you responded. Every time they expected you to defend, you advanced. Every time they expected you to shrink, you expanded. And they've been so busy looking for your weaknesses that they completely missed your strengths. So now they're sitting in meetings, rethinking everything, because the game changed and they're still playing by old rules. You know what's really eating at them? It's not just that they were wrong, it's that they were publicly wrong. That meeting wasn't private. Those words weren't whispered. That moment of collective realization wasn't contained. Other people saw it. Other people heard it. Other people now know that the experts, the strategists, the decision makers, they got you wrong. And in their world, being wrong about something this significant, that's not just embarrassing. It's career altering. It's reputation damaging. It's the kind of thing that makes other people question everything else they've said, every other prediction they've made. So yes, someone walked out saying, "We need to rethink everything." But what they really meant was, we underestimated them. We misread them. We built our entire strategy on a version of them that doesn't exist. And now we're exposed. That's the real translation. That's the real fear. Because rethinking everything means admitting everything up until now was wrong. And people like that, people who build their identities on being right, on being ahead, on being in control, admitting they're wrong breaks something fundamental in them. It fractures their confidence. It undermines their authority. It makes them question not just you, but themselves. And here's where this gets beautifully ironic. While they're busy rethinking everything about you, you don't have to rethink anything about yourself. You know who you are. You know what you're capable of. You know where you're going. Their confusion isn't your problem. Their crisis isn't your responsibility. Their desperate need to categorize you, to understand you, to predict you, that's their burden, not yours. You're free, free from their frameworks, free from their expectations. Free from their need to make you fit into boxes that were always too small for you anyway. Let's dig deeper into what that meeting revealed. Because it wasn't just about you, it was about them. About their systems, about their limitations. About the fact that their entire approach to understanding people is flawed. They rely on data, on patterns, on historical behavior. And all of that works beautifully when dealing with predictable people. But you're not predictable. You're adaptive. You're evolving. You're someone who learns, who grows, who transforms. And their systems can't account for transformation. Their models can't predict evolution. Their strategies can't contain someone who refuses to be the same person twice. So when someone stood up and said, "We need to rethink everything," what they were really confronting was the limitation of their own thinking. They were admitting that the tools they've relied on, the frameworks they've trusted, the strategies they've deployed, they don't work on you. And if they don't work on you, what else are they wrong about? Who else have they underestimated? What other opportunities have they missed because they were too busy fitting people into predetermined categories? That's the real chaos that meeting ended in. Not just confusion about you, but doubt about everything. And you want to know the most satisfying part? You didn't set out to break their systems. You didn't wake up trying to prove them wrong. You were just being yourself, growing, learning, evolving, pursuing your goals, living your life. And somehow, just by being authentically, unapologetically yourself, you became the variable that broke their equations. You became the case study that invalidated their theories. You became the example that exposed their expertise as limited. Not because you tried, but because you existed outside the boundaries they tried to impose on you. Now let's talk about what happens next, because this is where it gets really interesting. They're going to try to study you harder. They're going to try to find new patterns. They're going to collect more data, run more analyses, hold more meetings. And all of that effort, all of that energy, all of that focus on you, it's not making them stronger. It's making them weaker. Because every hour they spend trying to figure you out is an hour they're not spending on their own growth. Every strategy they build around containing you is a strategy that's already obsolete by the time they implement it. Every prediction they make is based on who you were, not who you're becoming. And while they're paralyzed by analysis, you're moving. While they're debating strategies, you're executing yours. While they're rethinking everything, you're building everything. The gap between you and them isn't closing, it's widening, and they feel it. That's why the meeting ended in chaos. That's why someone walked out. That's why the ones who stayed looked shaken. Because they can feel the momentum shifting. They can sense the control slipping. They can see the future taking shape, and in that future, they're not the ones determining your trajectory. You are. Here's what they'll never understand. You're not their competition. You're not their rival. You're not playing the same game they are. They're playing chess, moving pieces, thinking 3 moves ahead. You're playing a different game entirely. One they don't have rules for. One they don't have strategies for. One they can't win because they don't even understand how to keep score. And that dissonance, that fundamental mismatch in understanding, that's what creates the chaos. That's what makes them rethink everything. That's what makes their meetings about you turn into meetings about their own inadequacy. Let's address the fear, because fear is the real emotion driving that chaos. They're afraid of what you represent, not who you are as a person, but what you symbolize. You represent the possibility that their entire worldview is wrong, that their methods are outdated, that their authority is fragile, that their control is an illusion. You represent change they can't manage, growth they can't contain, success they can't explain. And when people's entire identity is built on being the ones who manage, who contain, who explain, someone like you becomes an existential threat, not because you're threatening them, but because your existence threatens everything they believe about how the world works. So they had a meeting. They tried to solve the problem of you, and midway through, someone realized, you're not the problem. Their inability to accept that people can exceed their predictions, that's the problem. Their need to control outcomes they have no right to control, that's the problem. Their assumption that everyone operates by the same playbook they do, that's the problem. And when that realization hit, when the real problem became clear, the only honest response was to walk out. Because you can't solve a problem by fixing the wrong thing. You can't rethink your strategy when your entire premise is flawed. And now, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, you're living rent-free in their minds, not because you're trying to, not because you care, but because they made you central to their concerns, their strategies, their meetings. They elevated you to that position. They gave you that power. And now, they can't take it back. Every decision they make, they'll wonder, how will this person respond? Every strategy they deploy, they'll question, will this work on someone this unpredictable? Every move they make, they'll second guess. Are we still underestimating them? That's the real victory here. Not that you won some battle, not that you proved something, but that by simply existing, by simply being yourself, by simply following your own path, you became the standard against which they measure their own effectiveness. You became the test case that determines whether their strategies work. You became the benchmark that exposes their limitations. And they did that to you. They gave you that role. They created that dynamic. And now they're living with the consequences of making you more important than you ever asked to be. So here's your crown, polished by their panic, forged in their fear, carried by their chaos. They wanted to understand you. They wanted to predict you. They wanted to control you. And in trying, they revealed everything about themselves and nothing about you. Because you remain, as you've always been, beautifully, powerfully, undeniably, beyond their comprehension. Someone walked out of that meeting saying they need to rethink everything. But you don't need to rethink anything. You just need to keep being exactly what they can't handle. Yourself, unfiltered, unstoppable, unapologetic. The meeting ended in chaos, but your story is just beginning. And this time, you're not the subject of the meeting. You're the author of the narrative. Class dismissed.